Hi there, welcome back to my weekly Shreddees show. This week I'm featuring this Jackson Pro Soloist SL2. This guitar I've had for a while now. This guitar has actually been the backup to my Kelly model that I mentioned in the first episode. And of course, now with the value of that Kelly being so expensive, and I'm always really weary about something happening to that guitar, I wanted to use something more now as a main guitar that I wouldn't be so worried about anymore, a more economical guitar that I wouldn't be, sad if it got dinged up, banged up, or disappeared altogether. So this guitar, I've actually now made my main guitar in Siren. So this is an Indonesian-made guitar. I got this summer of last year. It's a really nice guitar, really good low action on it. Now, the thing is, I also have the 7-string version of this guitar, which is this one. So both soloist, both pro. The only big difference between these two guitars is the headstocks. One's backwards on the 7-string and kind of regular on the 6-string. So now the one thing I'm going to mention is what I don't like about this guitar the most is that it has these Duncan distortion pickups. Now, Jackson started using the distortion pickups in the last few years, whereas for many, many years, they were always putting in the JB and the jazz combo in a lot of guitars. A lot of their, especially the Soloist and the Dinkies and the Randy Rhoads guitars. But recently they have gone to more of these distortion pickups, which I know, it's more designed for playing a lot more metal. But I actually prefer the versatility of the JB and the jazz combo. So at some point soon, I'm going to swap out the pickups in this guitar. Now, luckily, I was going through my stuff and I did have an old jazz pickup. Pretty sure it probably came out of one of my Randy Rhoads USAs, actually. But I don't have a JB trembucker to put in this guitar. And apparently, they're really hard to get at the moment. So I'm going to have to wait a little while before I can put it in. But this guitar has actually been my main rehearsing guitar, and I've used it now as the main guitar the last few Siren gigs. Now, another thing that I'm not crazy about, and I don't know why it's this fad, but the fret markers on these guitars, a lot of companies are going to no fret markers or no inlays on the fretboard. It's a kind of the new blackout kind of thing, and of course, this guitar has what they're now calling a piranha inlay, where I actually really prefer, both aesthetically and for purpose, like this guitar here, I can speak, has the shark tooth inlays. And I very much prefer this. And a big reason is, especially when I'm jamming with other people and I'm showing them how to play a riff or show them something on the fretboard, it's much more difficult to follow somebody on the fretboard, right? Because, the inlays are always, 3, 5, 7, 9, 12. And when you're trying to show riffs, it's harder to really see on the fretboard. So I don't know why that trend has really gotten popular, as I prefer to actually have the inlays. And I love the shark tooth inlays. So, but the pickups, though, really don't care for these pickups. At some point in the 7-string, I'm probably going to try something different, because my next solo album is going to have a lot of 7-string on it, and especially in the low end, these Duncan distortion pickups I find kind of muddy in the low end. It's really bad on the 7-string, so I think I'm going to probably try the Pegasus and Sentient set 7-string set on my 7-string, and this one I'm just going to keep it with the JB and the jazz, because also the backup guitar to this, it's not really backup, it's more the secondary guitar to this guitar for Siren now, is this guy here. And this guy already has, I think it's got a 59 in JB combo in it, and I love the JB, but this guitar I'll probably feature in another video soon, because the reason why I've got this now as a secondary, not really a backup, is that it doesn't have a Floyd Rose system on it. Now, everybody knows I pretty much play always with Floyd Rose guitars. I love to use a lot of whammy bar work, but also the tuning stability of a Floyd Rose is it's better for me. But I know a lot of guitar players hate Floyd Roses because there's a lot of maintenance, setting up to do. They're really finicky systems. And I think maybe in a future episode, I'm actually going to share my tips and tricks on how to use a Floyd Rose, since I've been using them for 30 years now. And I set them up pretty much that once I throw on a new set of strings, I never have to tune once they're set up. You got your fine tuners down here, and I rarely have to tune. I'm on stage though, when I'm playing a gig between songs, I'm always really checking my tuning, just because I like to be really perfect on the tuning. But I use a lot of whammy bar work, and if you don't have a Floyd Rose set up really well, it goes out of tune really easy when you start doing dive bombs and a lot of other stuff. So I'm going to share that probably in another episode. All right, so this week I want to talk about the importance of warming up. It is especially important. You don't want to get into a situation of not warming up properly and then developing tendinitis. I've actually had tendinitis, and it sucks. About 2011, I was playing in a metal alternative band called Gravity Crash, and I had developed tendinitis. Started with this wrist, and it kind of moved over into this hand after a short while. And it's because, frankly, I got lazy at warming up. I'd show up to rehearse with the band, and I wouldn't really warm up properly or at all. And I'd quickly develop tendinitis. And it sucks. So I want to kind of quickly go through a few items that I do, as few exercises I do to warm up. So this first one that I'll share with you, and this is sometimes I'll alternate. I'll usually go either between all the strings at once, or I'll just pick a couple, which I'll do this week. And that's where I will do different patterns in different configurations. And it's also a good exercise for developing finger independence. So quickly, I'll show you. I usually start with this first one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll basically the numbering is 1, 2, 3, 4 as in your fingers. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go backwards. 5. So 4, 3, 2, 1, but I'll move up a string like this. And you want to start off slow, kind of move around. Sometimes I'll just go all the strings if I got a little bit more time. Kind of go up and down the neck. I call this the fret walk. It's the first thing I ever learned on guitar, but I use it still to this day as a warm-up. And then I'll start doing some different finger combinations. I like this one of 1 and 3. Or a couple of strings involved, if need be. Then I'll actually go to like 2 and 4. Move it up and down. And then 1 and 4. Of course, you start off kind of slower when you first start warming up. And then other fingering, 1 and 2. 2 and 3. And the most difficult, 3 and 4 only. Of course, you're not trying to sound musical in any way. It's just a warm-up, right? And then 1, 2, and 3. 2, 3, and 4. Maybe 1, 2, and 4. And 1, 3, and 4. So I usually start off with something like that, kind of go slow. I'm already warmed up, of course. So you start off kind of slow, build up a little bit of speed. But then afterwards, usually I'll do, say, a series of exercises like that. I'll actually stretch. And what I'll do is, instead of just moving your hand back, you kind of try to naturally just move it back. And I'll actually use both hands. I'll do both wrists. I'll do it upwards. And then I'll also do the opposite of going underneath this way. I'll usually go frontwards, moving my thumbs down, and just try to get a good stretch, kind of turn in a bit, do the different ones. I'll even go into doing fingers, like for spreading, especially if you do any stretches in any of your work, any Dimebag Darrell kind of stretches, especially. You want to definitely do these kind of exercises. You don't really want to push too hard because you're still just warming up. But you kind of want to get something going here, with both hands. And then a little while ago, I actually started involving this one, where you kind of have your arm out like this. You try to push as far this way as you can, and then turn your head, actually. And then also kind of tilt your head this way. And then usually I'll kind of move this around a bit, give it a good stretch, and I'll do the same for the opposite side as well. So you want to make sure both sides are good, because I developed that tendonitis. Quite common too after so many years. A lot of guitar players will develop it. Kirk Hammett of Metallica, actually, I think it was around the Load era, actually had gotten it in his shoulder, and I think he had said something about it was from playing his acoustic guitar incorrectly, and he had developed that at that time. So then at this point, what I'll do after stretching is I'll separate the hands. Now this is a Dimebag Darrell thing of doing the left and the right hand separately. So what I will start with, and I'll put my phone on, I'll put a timer on, and for every minute I'll do a change. So the first minute I'll actually do a down pick, like this. Maybe start revving, what they call revving a little bit. And then when the minute changes, I'll start a legato pattern on this one. And I'll go for about a minute. And when that minute's done, I'll switch. I'll usually mute the low strings. I'll do an up pick on the A string for about a minute, maybe build up a little bit of speed. Then the next minute comes in. I'll switch it up. Usually I'll go 1, 2, and 4 as a pattern. Just legato, and again, go up and down the neck. Once that minute is done, change. So all of a sudden I'm on the D string. I'm doing an alternate picking for about a minute. Try to build up a little. You're not trying to be perfect, but you want to rev it a little bit, kind of build up. And the next minute you change, I'll do like a 1, 3, and 4 for about a minute. And all of a sudden you get to the G string. Now at this point, if anybody's around you, they're going to find this extremely annoying, because you're going to down pick on your G string for about a minute. Kind of rev it a little bit, add a little bit more intensity. And once that minute is up, you're switching. Now I'll start doing a little bit more difficult patterns. So like this one is a 1, 4, 3, and 2. And then switch to the next hand. Of course, do that one for about a minute. And then you're moving to the B string the next minute when it changes. And now I'll do an up pick. I'll be up picking for about a minute. You know, I'm not trying to be fast. You're just trying to get some blood flowing in the wrist on the picking. Minute finishes up. I'll choose another pattern. Lately I like this, where it's 1, 3, 2, 4. Sometimes I'll do picking in there more. You're pretty much getting warmed up by this point. So that minute finishes, and now you get to the high E string, and you're just going to alternate pick. It can be a little difficult to, you got to mute the other strings, right? By this point, you should be getting pretty warmed up. You can kind of rev a little bit higher. And then usually the last minute, I'll do this kind of pattern where I'm going 1 and 2. And then I'll move to this pattern of 1 and 3. This is one of my favorite ones, actually, because you really got to use all your fingers in different combinations. And by this time, you should be warmed up. 1 and 4. And we're going to get more difficult here now, because we're going to go 2 and 3. So usually I'm a little slower at this part, because it's harder building up the finger independence once you get to 2, 3, and 2, 4, which here I'm at 2, 4 now. Good for finger independence building too, not just the warm-up exercise. Of course, you gotta go slow, and then the hardest one is just 3 and 4. See, I'm kind of struggling a little bit, even though I'm warmed up. So those are my warm-up exercises. I definitely recommend doing them before, especially if you're going to do a lot of hard lead work. And it's also when you're playing gigs and you're coming in from the cold, playing a cold venue, if it's wintertime outside and you're coming in from the cold and whatnot, you definitely want to have good blood flow. So even find yourself a tap, run your hands under some warm water for, a minute to 2 minutes. Actually really helps get the blood flowing, because like I said, the last thing you ever want is tendonitis. It really, really sucks. So yeah, as I've mentioned before in other episodes, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Hit the notification bell if you wish to do so. But thanks for tuning in. Every week I'm going to be doing this show. As well, if you have comments, I'd appreciate comments in the comments section. I've always, I'm going to reach out to people trying to get some other ideas. Recently, I went to a local concert, a local gig here in Calgary. Saw one of my favorite bands, Illyrian. Unfortunately, they were playing their last show with 2 of the members of the group. I'm sad. But things always have to move on with bands. And of course, there's also another group called Tessitura that I really enjoyed. And I picked up some of their merch. I like hearing that band as well. So I always say support local artists. We're all starving, of course. We're all trying to make a buck. We're all trying to keep music going. It's all of our passion. So please support your local bands, support your local music, go out to a show, do what you can. But when I was at this latest show, I ran into another guitar player musician that actually saw the first episode, and his first comment to me was asking us when he would be able to be a guest appearance on the show. And I kind of like the idea. I'm going to bring him on the show at some point. I'm going to find a way to do this logistically, and I'm going to bring him on the show. He's he's a local player as well. And from what I remember of his group, he's really good on arpeggios and sweep picking. And everybody knows I struggle in that part. So maybe he can teach me something and have some good practice tips for everybody else out there. So I'm going to bring him here on the show at some point. And any other comments that you guys have, definitely would appreciate it. I'm always trying to shred, always learning, always so much to learn when it comes to the role of guitar. So thanks for tuning in this week. Please come back next week. I'll have more guitars. Till then, take care. Shred on.